Vicky Wynn in New York. We are coming on the air with breaking news. Right now, we are monitoring a hazmat situation that's unfolding at the Pentagon, with the Pentagon's chief spokesperson saying in a statement that an air quality issue has been detected. We want to bring in our senior national security correspondent, Courtney Kube, who's standing by on the phone. Courtney, if you can hear me, tell us what you are learning about the situation at the Pentagon. We understand there is a shelter in place underway right now.
Yeah, there is. A number of the different entrances to the Pentagon are closed for the time being. So what we know is that earlier this morning there was some sort of one of the more sensitive systems that the Pentagon has that detects potential problems with air quality. So that could include detecting things that might be a danger to people in the air there. Well, it popped positive for some kind of a potential contaminant. Because of that, they locked down the area all around that. That's the Pentagon Force Protection, that's Pentagon Police, basically. They locked down floors 2 through 5 and corridors 4 through 7. So a pretty significant chunk of the building is now on a shelter in place while they determine whether there was any kind of a contaminant that may have gotten out into the air there. Arlington County, which is the local county around the Pentagon, they have responded as well with one of the hazardous materials team. They're there supporting the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, who also has a hazmat team on the scene. But that's really all we know now. I mean, keep in mind, there are very sensitive detection systems that are in place to ensure that the people who are coming and going and working in that building every single day are safe. So there's not an immediate cause for alarm. It's possible that there could be a false positive here, but just out of an abundance of caution, the building is under a shelter in place, and people who are working specifically in that affected area have been told not to leave their offices. And again, no one can come or go from the Pentagon.
Courtney, this is so interesting because you're talking about air quality, and typically we think you want to get outside. But can you give us a sense of any chemical facilities, anything that is operationally near the Pentagon where, you know, there could be contaminants that could be leaked into the air that would affect the folks working there?
So, I mean, keep in mind, the Pentagon's in the middle of a bustling city. So it's hard to know if there's something that could have gotten in from the outside. I will say where the building, the section of the building that's under the shelter in place and it's locked down right now, there are entrances there, and they do have detection mechanisms at most of those entrances. So it would make sense to me if someone was coming in or leaving and the detector went off, as opposed to something from the outside environment. That would just given the area in the building. Yeah. But again, we don't know. I can tell you, this is not a common occurrence. Right. We don't see something like this happen very often. I've worked in the building for over 20 years, and I can only recall one other time where this has happened, that they've shut it down specifically because of the possibility of some sort of hazardous material. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, that there's anything to be concerned about yet, but it doesn't surprise me that out of an extreme abundance of caution, they have everyone sheltering in place to ensure that no one's exposed to anything that could be contaminating the air there.
Courtney, I do want to read from the chief Pentagon spokesperson, Sean Parnell, who's put out this statement talking about the sophisticated systems the Pentagon has to ensure the safety of the building and its occupants, and that those systems have detected an air quality issue necessitating precautionary measures. So you covered the Pentagon for 20 years. You've worked in the building. The last time that this happened, what did it end up being? Do you remember?
It was a false alarm. But I think the reason, I mean, it's not that long ago that we all remember when there were anthrax scares. Sure. So I think that situations like that always make people, especially when you're talking about the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, a lot of those officers have been there for a long time. They would always go out of an abundance of caution and take every potential measure to ensure, until they're 100% certain that there's no danger to the public and to the people who are in the building, that they would take every potential precaution.
Absolutely. It makes sense. And as you said, floors 2 to 5 locked down. The doors are locked at this point, and a shelter-in-place emergency situation is unfolding at the Pentagon right now. But no injuries reported, and this could be just a precautionary measure that's happening. Courtney Kube, thank you so much for your reporting. We'll let you go and call some of your sources inside to see how they're doing.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or watch live on our YouTube channel.